Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our survival series. In this episode, we're going to make start on our building system. So, I'm going to start off by creating our first building object, doing a lot of setup for future building objects, and show you how we can start working on the placement of these things in our scenes. So, let's get started. So, we're going to get started with our build menu and build system. And the way we're going to determine that is by using data assets to determine what kind of building pieces we can have in our game. So we're going to go back into our content folder here and we're going to create a new folder for building system. And in there, we're going to create the data asset that's going to be holding the details about each of the building pieces. So we're going to go to blueprint class, and in all classes here, you're going to search for primary data asset. And we'll just name this one DA for data asset building piece. And we're going to open this up. And in the resulting window, you're going to want to add the variables about the various things we want to contain about our building pieces. And there's a few key things we need to make sure we have. First of all, we need a name, so we can actually display it on our menu. That's going to be a text value. You may also want to include a description, so you can describe to the player what it is and what it does. We'll also need to know what class it's going to be that we're going to place into our scene. So we're going to go to our variables and add a class. And you're going to search for actor and go down to actor, but choose a class reference instead. Okay. Next, we're going to have the recipe. So what ingredients do you need to basically build the thing you want to build? So on the variables here, we're going to click on the plus and we're going to call this one recipe. Now, recipe is going to be a map and it's going to contain a key for the ingredient and the value will be the quantity of that ingredient. Now, if we go back to our inventory system, somewhere there it is, and you can see here, if we go into our inventory system, our content is made of slots, but each slot has the item ID and name. Okay, so we're going to go and on our building piece, put that in as our name and change it to map. I'm going to leave the value as an integer, so it's the number of the items that we have. That may do it for now. Now, the beauty of data assets is we can always come back and add more stuff later if we so need to. So for now, that will do just fine. Hit save, compile, and close that. Okay, so let's go back to our building menu. Building system, there we are. And we're going to create a new folder in here for building pieces. And this is where we'll put our definitions of various building pieces we have. Actually, no, we're making another folder for the data assets for that. So building pieces data. There you go. In that data folder is where we'll put the data asset. So just create a new data asset by going to miscellaneous and going up to data asset and choosing our DA building piece. And this will be, we'll make this the fire pit. Okay. And we're going to open this up and we'll just define our fire pit. So fire pit, create a small fire to keep warm and to cook food. Okay. Now we don't have a class for this, but in recipe, we can define what we want for our recipe. So we're going to click on the plus here and we're going to do something simple with just wood. Now, to know what you have to type in here, just go to inventory system that you've been making, and in item data, you'll see wood is the key name. Oops. And so this one will be wood, and we'll say we need 3 pieces of wood to make this fire pit. Okay, we'll save that, and that'll do for now. So the class is going to be the actual thing that we place into our scene. So let's create our building piece in the other folder, building pieces, create blueprint class, and we're going to create a base class for this. Now, the reason why we want a base class is because a lot of our building pieces are going to react in the same way when we want to build them and destroy them and place them. So we're going to have building piece base and open this up. We're going to add an empty static mesh, and I say leave it empty. That's totally fine. And we're going to hit compile and save that, and let's close that. So now I can make a child of this, and this would be my fire pit. And in here I can design what I want my fire pit to look like. So we can go into here, and I can bring in whatever mesh I want to use here. So what we've got in here, so I want to use a mesh. I'm going to go into my assets that I have here. I've got a bonfire, and I've got a bonfire with the actual fire itself. I'm just going to put in the bonfire plane, and I'm going to drag that up to my static mesh component there. Okay, so there is our mesh. Compile, save that. And then we can put whatever logic we want the fire pit to have on here too. So if it's going to keep the player warm, or it's going to cook their food, whatever it may be, we designed all that functionality on this actor. So we may want to go in and add a sphere collision to determine like the size of the heat. So we put in a radius, drag that out for how far away the heat would be felt, like that. There we go. Okay. Obviously this is unlit. If we wanted to, we can add a particle system to this as well. So we're going to add components, and we're going to add a particle system. Now the one that comes with the starter content is using the Cascade particle system. So we're just going to search for particle, this one, and we're going to choose our fire. I'm just going to bring that up a little bit. There we are. Save. So if I place it to world, you can see, if I go back here, there it is. Okay, obviously that looks massive. I think I'm gonna have to turn down the size of that static mesh in there. Simple enough to do. Just go back into our fire pit, go to the mesh, and we're going to change the scale here. I'm going to turn a little padlock on, so when I change one, it changes all of them. I'll put it down to 0.7. And that's looking a bit better. I think we'll keep that as our fire pit. So let's go through the process of actually having to place this thing. So we need to be able to place this by using a material to indicate where we're going to put it. So I'm going to go back to my root of my building system and create a new material. And we're going to do material for M. M for material, sorry. And then on here, we're going to have build preview. Open this up. And on build preview, we're going to make it so we see like a hologram or ghosting of what we want to build and place into our scene. So to do that, we're going to use something called a Fresnel node. And the Fresnel node, if I just plug it into our emissive here, you can see what it does. It basically highlights the edges of it. Okay, and with a more complex mesh, you can see how this looks even further. So if I go back to that bonfire mesh and hit a little button on the right here, it'll show us what it's going to look like with that mesh there. Now, if I do also make this thing translucent and use this for opacity, so go to translucent and plug it into opacity, you can see that sort of ghosting effect going on. Now, you're still seeing little caps on these just because this model has 2 materials assigned to it. That's fine, we're not worried about that. We're just going to see what this looks like here. So here's our little ghosting effect, and we probably want to have a different color based upon whether or not it's a valid placement or an invalid placement. So we're going to have a color parameter. So you can hold down 3 and left click to create our vector for the color. Right click on this and we can convert to parameter. This allows us to change this color in the game. So when it can be placed, we'll make it green, and when it can't be placed, we'll make it red. So we'll just change this to color, and we'll put a default color of green, like that. Okay, I'm going to multiply that by our first null, and now go into emissive color. Okay, so here we've got this little ghosting effect going on. Now, there's a few things you can do to make this look even better. Is you can change the first null here, so we can tweak the settings to get different effects. So if you change the base reflection here to something a bit lower, you'll see it get sharper edges. And if I change the exponent up here, I'll change it to 10, for example. Oh, not 10, we'll do 1. You'll see it spread out a bit more. Okay, so we want to make it still visible to us as we place into our scene. So I'm quite happy with this outcome. Let's increase the reflect here. We go 0.08. Yeah, okay. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so that'll do for our build preview material. We're going to save that. And then we're going to go and create an instance of it. And we can also then do another one of these. So I'm going to duplicate this one. And that'll be build preview instance error. We'll call this one. And this one, we're going to go ahead and change the color here to red. There we are. So the challenge now comes, you want to apply the material to the whole object, not just one material, because this one has 2 materials on it. So we want to keep the materials it has whilst replacing those materials temporarily. So on the event graph here, we're going to go on begin play, and we're going to drag out our mesh. In fact, actually, sorry, this would be in the parent class. Whoops, my bad. In the parent class, there we go. On begin play, we're going to drag out the mesh, and we're going to get materials. Okay, and we're going to promote that to a variable, and we'll do that as materials like this. And then we want to replace it. Now we're basically saving what materials this thing has at start. And then after that, we're going to then change the material over on it. So I'm going to set the mesh, and we're going to set material. And you'll see here we've got element index. Now we don't know, because this is the base class, we don't know how many materials the meshes may have in the future. So this needs to be dynamic. So what we're going to do is take the materials array here and its length, or easier one would be to get the last index of it, and then do a for loop with that index. So for loop, and then that goes into the last index there, and then put that loop body into the set material. The index will match up with the element index, so plug that in. And on the material, we want to change that to the material we want to be using. And that material we want to be using is going to be the preview one. Now, the preview one will change periodically as things do, to change their based upon the situation where you're placing these things. So on the material here, we're going to drag this out and promote that to a variable. And we'll call this one preview material. And when I compile that, I'm going to go to the preview thumbnail and do just that. Preview, and do mBuild preview instance. Okay, just a green one for now. Like this. So if I were to place that into the scene and then push play, take it back to single player temporarily, I'll turn around and I can see it applying to all the materials now, not just the one that we chose. Okay, so there is our fire pit ready to be placed. And then what we can do is go back to our building piece base, and I'm going to close that. And I just want to change this for loop last index here into a function, because I'm going to be calling this again when I change the positioning of the item. So I'm just going to grab this and collapse that to a function, and we're going to call this one set preview material. And in fact, we don't need that target array. We can take that off and we can remove that index there, because we can just go into the function and just hard code that in like that. Okay, so I'm going to go for each one, change the preview material. Now the preview material is going to change based upon a index on here. So I'm going to go to input and leave it as a Boolean and go is valid placement. And fix that spelling. There you go. And we're going to use that for the preview material here. So we're going to, on valid placement here, set preview material and select based upon this Boolean. So if it's true, we want you to pick the one that we currently got here. So just copy that. And I think it's going to let me, is it? No, okay, fine. We'll just do preview and make sure it's in the instance one. And then we're going to do preview for false, for the red one, the error one. So that'll change that variable, and then we'll reuse that variable here in the set material. Okay, so go back to my event graph, and we've got set preview material. And if I don't leave it, if I don't tick it, that means we should get a red one when I push play. There we go. Okay. Now we have got a fire pit on there, and the fire has this particle system. Now we probably don't want to place this thing with the particle system playing when we're previewing our assets. So we need to know when we're previewing. So on our variables down here, we're going to have one called is previewing. And that's going to be, by default, it's going to be true. Because the first time you make these things, it's going to be true to have that. We are then going to make a new event dispatcher and do this one on object placed. And compile and save that. And we'll make a custom event in here called place object. Place object is going to take the mesh and change its materials back to our material array that we set up here. So take out the materials, do a for each loop, and we're going to now set that onto our mesh here. Set materials, set material rather. Plug in the array element and plug in the element index like so. Now, place object is only going to allow this to work if we have a valid placement. So let's make another variable for that. Go is valid placement. And we'll drag that out into a branch. It's true. We'll change the materials over. And we're then going to change is previewing on completed here to be false. Compile, save. So what I want to do now is go to my fire pit, and go to the particle system, and I'm going to turn off my particle system temporarily. So I'm going to go down to auto activate and just turn that off. And then on my particle system, I'm going to right click and, or not right click, we just go to functions here and go to override. And I want to override the place object class, function, sorry. Right click on this and add call dependent function. We need to make sure we do this so that therefore the parent stuff, this stuff here happens, and then we'll have some bonus stuff happening on the fire pit. And the bonus stuff here is that we're going to turn the particle system on. So set active and turn that to be true. Compile and save. And that's when also you can turn on things like the ticking behavior if it has ticking behavior, overlap behavior, anything like that. Things that you don't want to happen when you're previewing, but do you want it to happen when it's placed? That's what you want to happen there. Okay. So back to my building piece base. We're going to leave it as such, ready to begin the menu stuff later. So there you go. We've now got the basic starting point of our building system. All that's left to do now is to start work on our actual placement of these items in the world. So we've got the preview nodes are going. We now need to make it so I can check for placement and be able to control that placement with our mouse and keyboard. So you want to watch the next episode right now, head over to patreon.com/Ryan Lady, where you can find all my videos early from just $1 a month. Thank you to all my patrons and YouTube members for their continued support in the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribed, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.